Good afternoon, everybody, and I want to welcome you to the Governor's Mansion. And as we prepare to celebrate Christmas and welcome a new year, we have something else to celebrate, and that's an advancement here with respect to law enforcement, particularly the state police. As you all know, Louisiana has some of the most dedicated public safety officials, law enforcement officers in the country. And we want to ensure that they have the resources, the training, the technology to safely and effectively serve the citizens of our great state. And at the start of my administration, pursuant to conversations that I had with Colonel Edmondson, he tasked his staff to evaluate Louisiana State Police operations and identify ways to improve accountability, transparency, efficiency, and safety. And so state police staff began with research of recording devices to include body camera systems, and staff looked to other law enforcement agencies in their deployment of various recording devices, as well as the capabilities and compatibilities of these systems. And for more than 7 months, a pilot program was administered with 20 state troopers from across the state. And after successful results from this program, we are proud to announce today that the Louisiana State Police is taking steps to purchase approximately 1,500 Axon Body 2 cameras through Taser Axon using funds identified in the state police's existing budget. And so I'm proud to be joined here today by Colonel Edmondson of the State Police, but also by Rick Smith of Taser Axon, both of whom are going to speak to you in just a moment. But these cameras are going to be issued to uniformed patrol sergeants and troopers, as well as DPS officers whose duties range from foot patrol in the French Quarter of New Orleans to patrolling rural state and parish roads all over our great state. These cameras will also be kept on hand for troopers on special assignments. The cameras are going to assist the state police with evidence collection, accountability and transparency, as well as the safety of troopers and the public alike. For nearly 2 decades, the state police have utilized in-car cameras in all of their patrol units and will continue to do so in conjunction with these new body cameras. And it is particularly noteworthy that this full statewide deployment across the state of Louisiana, it'll be the first of its kind among statewide public safety agencies in the country. Nobody else has done what we're announcing today. And as we continue to look at opportunities for police reform across Louisiana, I want to applaud the Louisiana State Police for taking the initiative, being proactive by making sure that they're improving transparency through this body camera program. And I know that it's going to inure to the benefit of the troopers and the public alike. And so I want to thank all of our public safety officials for their brave and dedicated service to the people of Louisiana. And troopers are going to be here today to give you a little more information and show you what these particular devices look like. And so at this time, I'm going to be followed by Colonel Edmondson, who will then be followed by Mr. Rick Smith.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you all for coming here today. This is very exciting for me. Someone's been involved in law enforcement for close to almost 4 decades, and starting my 37th year as a Louisiana State Trooper, and to be joined by our Governor, John Bell Edwards, and the founder of Taser, Rick Smith, is a pretty exciting day for me. Long before the inauguration, during the transition period of Governor Edwards, you heard him. He was extremely engaged in what we were doing as a state police agency. He wanted to know what our policies were, how we were moving forward, what was our training, and in those conversations we started talking about cameras. And when you talk about the accountability and transparency of law enforcement, let's just look at our recent groups and protests we had in Baton Rouge. Whether you were for or against those protests, one thing they did was they opened up the communication line between our police and first responders and our public. And we started having those conversations about what was important to them and what was important to us. One of the things I tasked, you heard the governor say, I tasked my officers and my staff to look not only across the country but around the world. What are other agencies doing when it comes to cameras? State police, we have cameras in our cars, and it was capturing what takes place looking forward in that particular car. But by going to a camera, and we're going to do this right after the 1st of January, we'll put cameras on every one of my state troopers that are deployed, and the public safety police officers that are employed in the New Orleans area, and that detail there. So we'll have that up first. And this spring, and hopefully before summer, we'll deploy this fully statewide within our state police troopers and our DPS officers across the state. This is about transparency. And this is, as the governor said, about accountability. Because we will be able to see real time exactly what a police officer or state trooper actually sees. Think about that. As a trooper is making an altercation, as they're looking at someone, they'll be able to articulate their actions. They'll be able to take that information, whether it's a driver's license, put it in front of the camera, capture that. They'll be able to talk to the person in front of it. Can you imagine approaching an individual and then articulating them why they're approaching that? When we're talking about reasonable suspicion, what that reasonable suspicion is, the probable cause to effective arrest. They'll be able to articulate that into a camera that can be viewed by the district attorney, can be viewed by the court, and most importantly, it can be viewed by us and the public. They can see real time exactly in that situation what we're seeing. And made that available, then we'll be able to talk about our actions. But also from a training perspective, which is so important to me, because even during this program, we could look at a state trooper and officer's deployment or actions in a traffic stop. Are they in a safe position? Are they talking to the individual? How are they talking to them? What kind of questions are they asking? This will be a continual training that we can look at, because that supervisor can look at that tape and say, look what you're doing right, look what you're doing wrong. That officer can look at it and be able to articulate and see what they're doing in a situation. So from an officer training, from an officer safety perspective, this is a home run. But to the public, you know, the most important thing we do is integrity and this badge and what it holds. So what that brings forward today is extremely important to me. My goal was to do it right the first time, which is why we've taken our time. We've looked at what's been good and bad across the country. We've looked at all the different agencies out there, and we settled on Axon because what Axon brings to us is an integrated solution. Because we want to be able to tie this camera. When a state trooper officer deploys their taser, it automatically starts recording all devices of Axon. So if New Orleans Police, which has an Axon camera on them, it will also turn that camera on also. So we'll be capturing all that information based on what people are seeing within an area there. So we're going to grow in technology as we move forward within the contract that we have with Taser and Axon. Is we'll be able to replace these cameras as they evolve at year 2.5 and at year 5, and also we'll be able to deploy these cameras and move them with the technology. Because this is about growth. This is about a change in culture and the way we do things, but also geared back towards accountability and being thorough and throughout our deployment. What I'd like to do is turn it over to Rick Smith, the founder of Taser, and let him make a couple of comments on how important he was in inventing this concept and bringing it forward now with the Louisiana State Police on a statewide basis, but also around the country and around the world. Rick?
Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Governor. Wow, I can't tell you how humbled I am to be here today. I started this company in a garage a little over 25 years ago. I had a couple friends who were shot and killed, and I personally came to believe that technology could play a major role in trying to make the world a safer place, try to make it so that police could do their jobs with lower risk of injuring people. And over time, we've evolved into this idea of not only weapons that are safer, but how do we change human behavior? And I think that's the part that I'm really excited to see with this now being deployed statewide in the state of Louisiana. We'll be able to see not only the challenges officers faced and the great work that they do, but we've actually seen a lot of studies that show that when people know that an incident's being recorded, everybody's behavior improves. People are a little more careful, they're perhaps a little more polite, and we're seeing things like police use of force actually drop by 60 or 70% in many cases. So this past year, the President's Council on 21st Century Policing talked about the importance of new technologies like body cameras, and the majority of the major cities have moved this direction. But today is momentous in that this is the first time a state has moved statewide to deploy this technology at scale. And we are, again, delighted and humbled to have been selected as a partner, not only in deploying the cameras themselves, but all the technology on the back end that enables really the transparency. For this to work, you've got to be able to deploy thousands of cameras and move that data around in a way that is both secure, that is also accountable, so that we know that, for example, things aren't being deleted, that every video is accounted for as it moves through the legal process and ultimately serves its ultimate purpose, which is to increase the trust and transparency between law enforcement and the communities they serve. And of course, we've all seen the challenges that law enforcement is facing today, and we like to think that this will be a crucial element in changing that conversation and bringing communities and law enforcement back together. So we're delighted to be playing a role in this process. And again, thank you, Colonel, thank you, Governor, for allowing us to work with you on this important project.
One thing I want to add, I think this is important. In my very first meeting with then-elect Governor Edwards, prior to him reappointing me as superintendent, as he told me quite strikingly, is that, he says, Colonel, I need you to strive for perfection. And he said, you know what? I need you to be perfect. And he reevaluated that and reset it during our recent events here in the Baton Rouge area. I want you to think about that. The public expects the police to be perfect. And you know what? 99.9% of the time, we get it right. We get it right. But a police officer can't hit a pause button. During a situation where they've deployed their weapon or they're about to make a big arrest or it's a major shooting or a major crime, they can't hit a pause button and say, wait a minute, let me think about my training. Let me think about what's in front of me. Let me think about what I'm getting ready to do, which could involve taking a human life or saving a human life. We've got to be aware of our training. I tell my troopers that every single day. Be aware of your surroundings. Remember your training. And for God's sakes, be safe. This technology today will allow us to evolve into a concept that lets us see everything we're doing. It tells the public, you know what, we have no problem with what you see that we see. We don't have a problem for us to sit there and articulate why we take the actions we take. This is what it does today. And I'm proud to stand next to a governor who not only said this during campaign, he made these things happen, and we're going to make it happen in the very first year. So I'm proud to announce this to you all today. I'm proud to say that it's about transparency, it's about officer safety, but it's about educating the public who expects us to be perfect. We're striving to be. We'll take any questions y'all might have.
I'm curious, you mentioned that this was coming out of the existing budget. How much is this costing? And what does that mean that it's coming from the existing?
$5.3 million over a 5-year period. What I've done is I've been very smart with my money. The budget is given to the state police. I'm just like any other state agency. There's a misconception out there that when we write a ticket, it goes to the state. That goes to the local areas that we write those tickets in. No dollars come back to the state of Louisiana or the state police based on our enforcement actions of writing tickets. The existing budget with our camera systems, with our technology, we've been planning for this. We spent the last 8 months working through our budget to make sure as we go forward, this is not an additional strain on the Louisiana budget, and it has not been, it will not be as we move forward. That was important to me, and also to be able to sit there and tell the legislature and to tell our governor that we're working to do things right. We were thorough, we took our time, and we want to do it right because we wanted to come back and say, you know what, we need an extra X amount of dollars to finish this project. What we've done at this point is complete moving forward. We'll grow in it, we'll replace those cameras in it, and what's most important, because you'll hear that, you hear about the cloud, you hear about the cost all involved in that. This is unlimited coverage. So we're not sitting there paying a fee monthly based on what our coverage is. It's included in this one going forward. So it's good to be first. It's great to be first. And with that, we can set the stage as we move forward on. Yes, ma'am.
On that front, in terms of storage of the actual footage, what is the plan for that? How long would it be stored? When would you, presumably you're not just going to store it for thousands of years, but yeah.
Well, I know you would like it stored for 1,000 years, and we certainly aren't going to do that. But in the future, we'll have the capability, especially during arrest, especially during incidents, to be able to save that film or that video as long as we need to. The camera's always going. Certainly, it'll take that police officer as we train them. They'll have to deploy to make sure it's continually recording. So that's built into it. And I'm not a completely technical guru, guru that actually talk about that, but I understand the concept that we'll be able to maintain a storage of this indefinitely if we need to, especially for training purposes, and also for the courts, for the district attorneys, for you, the media, and most importantly, our greatest assets, and that's the public. Rick, do you want to add anything on the storage side of it?
No, I would say we've provided unlimited storage here, so the patrol can store as much or as little as fits their policy. We do find that there's a balance with any of these programs. So from one perspective, you want to make sure that video is available when you need it, but you also probably don't want police to be keeping video of everything forever from sort of a privacy and retention of records perspective. So I think, we see many agencies will keep things for example, 6 months unless it's marked as an incident that they want to keep because there's a complaint or a crime associated with it. And then they'll frequently delete those older records. But again, this is the first time it's being done at a statewide level, and so I think those are things that we'll learn together as we move forward as to what the policy will be. But the technology, it's sort of all in, that it's not going to change the cost of the program, whatever those record retention policies are.
Yeah, I'm less concerned about the cost. I guess I just want to know if we're in the process of developing a policy for how long it's going to be retained or not.
We retain, basically some of the stuff we retain anyway from 6 months to 2 years. So that information will be available to us. If it's an arrest, if it's a major crime, if it's a particular incident, we'll certainly be smart enough on the front end to know that we need to maintain those types of deals. The individuals we have in the troop that are transferring our in-car cameras now to DVDs, we'll continue to do that on that level, but we'll also be making sure that this information is stored to the troop as we need it. We're going to work through that, and certainly as we'll be transparent with that, we'll certainly be transparent with y'all as we go forward. And if we make mistakes, we'll correct them. And we'll correct them in the knowledge that y'all know about it and the public knows about it. Look, I've believed my whole life that the public has a right to know. That's not changing today. They have a right to know what we're doing. They have a right to know why we're doing those things. That's important to our governor, and it's always been important to me, and will continue to be important as long as I'm head of state police.
The video, you said the public will be able to view it. I imagine that's on case by case. It won't be able to access a website and pick a camera.
We'll certainly still work with the public records laws and getting that information. What's been important to me is when you make a request to state police, we try to get it to you as quickly as possible. Certainly if it's an ongoing investigation, certainly if lives are at stake in the matter, certainly if the district attorney or judges need to review that, we'll certainly get that information to them. But I can certainly promise you, when you're making a request, we're going to try to get it to you as quickly as possible. If we can't, we're going to tell you why. But look, I will say again, the public has a right to know what we're doing. And when we can show them video based on a police officer's actions, to me, that's a win situation because it shows us that, you know what, we're being transparent. We're being honest. Integrity still is the main reason behind why we do our job. And that's important to me. This badge, it's not a right. It's a privilege. And a privilege we take very seriously within state police.
And it was mentioned that when the tasers deploy, the cameras will go on automatically.
That's correct.
Is that the same thing when the lights go on in the car? Will they always be?
We'll be looking at all that. That's how our in-car cameras, which we still have, our goal, and again within the same budget, is to initially replace our in-car cameras where they'll all tie into this. It's all about an integrated solution. Everything that I can tie in to one solution, I certainly want to do that. And certainly when I can go to the scene to a split screen and look at a live feed, a feed that I'm reviewing, somebody else's camera and something else, that just gives me a lot more tools in that investigation, a lot more ability to educate the police department going forward in that investigation and ultimately to educate the public.
All right, thank you all very much. The state police is going